If you know one thing about Marcella Hazan, it's her famous tomato sauce with onion and butter. It was the first recipe we tried on this channel, and it's because it's all over the internet. But in that same book, The Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking, she actually has 7 different tomato sauce recipes. So today, without much skill, but yes, much enthusiasm, we're going to be trying one of those underdog sauces and seeing how it compares to the internet's most famous sauce. Right under the sauce that we all know and love, and the stain, is tomato sauce with olive oil and chopped vegetables. This is tomato sauce number 2. And this time, instead of putting in butter, we're putting in ingredients. But not stopping there, she gives us the optional addition of adding rosemary and pancetta at the end. That seems like a good option. So let's get started. I needed that recipe actually. So first we need 2 sticks of celery chopped. Probably better. I'm assuming that up to here counts as the stick. Now when she says chopped, how chopped is chopped? I'm just gonna start and see what happens. So when I've been asked to go smaller, she's usually asked me to dice things, and I'm gonna guess that there's a difference between chopped and diced. So chopping has occurred. 3 medium carrots, also chopped. And I guess I'm going for roughly the same size as the other pieces. The interesting thing about this compared to the last sauce is she says that the carrots bring a sweetness and the celery brings a fragrance, which both give a depth to the tomato flavor in this sauce. 2 medium onions, also chopped. Ooh, don't cry. I'm not sure I've ever actually chopped an onion before. I've sliced and I've diced. Just aim for this size. Halfway there, living on a prep. So the goal is to have roughly equal amounts of all 3. I think we got it pretty damn close. Now, I was surprised to hear that we weren't going to be sauteing these first, but apparently this is what's called a crudo. Just sounds like crude. I suppose it's because you're crudely chucking it all into the pot. So next we need 500 grams of tinned tomatoes. In the last video, we pitted fresh and canned tomatoes against each other, and the consensus seemed to be that unless we were in peak tomato season, canned was the better option.
That's the one you have in winter when you're cold and you feel miserable.
And it's nearly winter now. Now, last time I was trying not to get my chopping board messy, so I tried straining out the juices directly into the pot. It didn't really work out as well as I thought. Why not just use a fork? That was a good moment of post-video clarity. That was just stupidly easy. Now, I've only been able to find these in 400 gram tins, so we're using 1 and a bit, which we will call 4 tomatoes. Chop them all up. Don't spill it, just an unspecified amount of salt, a not included in the recipe bit of pepper, and over to the stove. So we're gonna put this onto a bare simmer for 30 minutes, just stirring occasionally. I'm a bit worried about how this is actually gonna turn into a sauce. There's a lot of chunks in here. I guess vegetables have a bit of water in them. Maybe that's the whole point of the crudo thing. Okay, I think we're gonna call that a bare simmer. Now you certainly don't have to do this step, but I am really looking forward to it. We get 50 grams of pancetta. Now I got this from a very adorable little Italian grocery that was near me. I can't see the scales. 54 grams. Now she says that this should be julienne. I know that's a type of cutting because a Friends episode taught me that. I don't really know the technique for doing that. So we're gonna see if Marcella has anything to say on it. Look, disappointingly she doesn't, but I've got an idea. Introducing Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And I'm sorry to admit I made a couple of recipes off camera, but I feel like if I've got anything that's got the answer, it's gonna be this. Yes, okay, so we're essentially making little matchsticks. Cheers, Jules. It's kind of tricky keeping it all together. I just had an idea. I'm gonna roll them up. Hey, look at that. Now we'll cut these into our strips. And there we go, allegedly julienne. We also want a sprig of fresh rosemary. So introducing Mr. Sad Rosemary Plant has done a lot to survive his little pot and a frosty, frosty winter, but he's given some good rosemary at the moment. For Marcella, I'm sure he'd be happy to give a sprig. So we've stripped him, and now we're gonna very finely chop. Thank you for your service. So that bare simmer is still bare simmering away. Thankfully, there's a lot more liquid. It's feeling a bit more like a sauce. Next step is to up the simmer to a stronger simmer for 15 minutes. Now, while that's on its second simmer, we're gonna start our optional but very welcome rosemary and pancetta. Set to a medium-high heat. Add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. When you turn up the heat on the sauce, and certainly not after, because you definitely didn't forget, add 6 tablespoons of olive oil as well. Again, I should stress, not Aussie tablespoons. Once the oil's hot, add your pancetta and your rosemary. Now we're cooking this for only a minute and stirring almost constantly. Damn, it smells good. These have cooked for a minute, but I just want to push it a little bit longer. That's been 2 minutes and that's as far as I'm pushing it. Now we'll wait until the sauce is ready. So it's been 15 minutes at a stronger simmer, and now we're going to add our pancetta and rosemary. And all that rosemary infused oil as well. Now we let it simmer for 15 more minutes. She doesn't say what level of simmer, but with that instruction, we're just gonna leave it where it is. Now she says that for pasta, conchiglie, fusilli, or cartwheels are the best choice. Don't know if I'm saying any of that right. The only one that I could find was fusilli. Fusilli. She says a minimum of 3 liters of water. 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Look, I'm sorry to the purists, but I'm not going to spend that much time grinding salt. Iodine's good for you anyway. Still getting clouds. And time to boil. Now we'll test the pasta for the right amount of doneness. Okay, it's nearly there. A little bit too much bite. Perfect. And now we drain it into the very messy sink. Whew. Into our bowl, and we toss it with the sauce. The trusty salad servers. And that is our Challenger sauce. Tomato sauce with olive oil and chopped vegetables. Now the recipe doesn't call for it, but we're gonna put a little bit of grated Parmesan just on the side, just in case. You've heard of Marcella's famous sauce. This is Marcella's not famous sauce. And I know you're gonna be disappointed by this, but she doesn't say to put Parmesan cheese on this. However, I have some backup, just in case.
My tummy just growled. It's good. I like the veggies. I'm a fan of the fried or cooked celery.
It's funny you should say that because all of this actually had to go in raw. And I was worried that it was gonna taste a little bit like we just had sort of steamed vegetables mixed through some tomatoes.
No, I think the vegetables add flavor like they do in a stew.
I'm actually not missing the butter.
Oh, no butter. I wouldn't have guessed there wasn't any butter in this.
Last time we were saying that the butter added a roundness to it. I mean, it's the butter that kind of makes it work.
Butter fixes everything.
Butter fixes everything. But that same quality seems to be in this. Something about simmering the olive oil for that long. It's given it that creamier texture. It tastes bigger. There's just a bit more going on.
I bet it's the pancetta. Pancetta fixes everything.
Pancetta fixes everything. I had cheese ready. Was this necessary? No.
I still want it though.
You still want it though?
But I don't need it, and that's the point. It's not necessarily better, it's just different.
You could take it or leave it. So Millie, the ultimate question is this worthy of being just as famous as Marcella's internet famous tomato sauce with onion and butter?
Yeah, I reckon so. Doesn't even need cheese.
Doesn't even need cheese.
That says a lot.
I'd be inclined to say this is a more substantial meal. This feels healthier, but you're not sacrificing on any of that flavor either.
I feel like I'm going to be fuller and more satisfied for longer after this.
If you have the time to chop a few extra vegetables and sauce a little bit of pancetta, make this sauce instead. This is honestly just far more interesting and still works for a weekday meal. So Millie, what's your suggestion for signing off this week?
You call that a cookin'? This is a cookin'.
What? Suggestions in the comments for a good sign off, but otherwise let me know if you try this. She's trying it twice. And thanks for joining us on Marcella's Underdog Tomato Sauce. I'll see you next time.